Welcome to MMA Fancast. My name is Luke Payson. Please like or subscribe, particularly if you're a fan of Savage Gentleman. Savage Gentleman, welcome to the show.
Good day. Thank you for having me.
It's absolutely incredible having you on the show. You are my second ever pro wrestler I've had on the show. And of course, the first ever was your opponent for Sprawl in the Burgh 247 Fighting Championships at the Holywood Casino at the Medows, October 20th. Super exciting. The post went out just a couple days ago about your matchup. Why say yes to this? What are your thoughts coming into this? You're crossing over from your wrestling world a little bit. What brought this together?
So we got to go back a little bit further than what you just went to. I'm an undefeated mixed martial arts fighter. I'm 3-0. I have professional boxing experience, grappling experience. I am the trifecta of travesty. I am a living, breathing elite athlete. So this is just the next step in my path. It's in my backyard. I can't wait to return to the cage. It's unfortunate that I do know Garrisaon, but he has to be the victim of this match.
Well, there's a lot going on there. Let's back up to the MMA. When did you start training MMA in order to get that 3-0 MMA record? And did you fight under the name Savage Gentleman back there, or were you fighting under your other name?
So I started over a decade ago. It was about 2008 whenever I began my training. First 2 months, I had 2 victories as an amateur, and I was like, this is for me. And I kept going, trained. I think my last fight was in 2013, second round guillotine finish. So everyone knows me as a striker, yet majority of my victories have come from submission. So a lot of people don't get to see that side of me, and especially with the pro wrestling aspect, I really lean into the Sagat Street Fighter style, the Jean-Claude Van Damme style. You know, I merged the two, which are a real video game and a movie. You know, put those two together, that's what you get here. But they never get to see the grappling side of me. So I'm here to show everyone, whenever I step in the cage, that I have no weaknesses.
Yeah, and it's a great opportunity to show that when you're talking about, I'm guessing your match is 8 minutes long, but it's however long your contract says. Do you know, is it 8, 10? I know the matches in Sprawl in the Burgh kind of depend on contract to contract.
So it doesn't matter. It's not going that long.
Of course, it's submission only. You're right. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter. Although I one time was at a submission only event where it was a limitless time, no time limits at all. And I saw 2 heavyweights go for over an hour. And they they actually took breaks. Like you could hear them whispering to each other, like, hey, So, hey, I like it. Good sportsmanship. They took some breaks during it. And then, hey, you know what? It is what it is. But no breaks at this event for Sprawl in the Burgh. All action. So for you, you've bounced around, obviously. You're a trifecta of all types of talent and ability. You said this is your backyard. Where are you born, raised? Where do you live? Kind of what makes the casino at Canonsburg like a perfect location for you to put on this show?
I was born and raised in Pittsburgh. That's where I grew up. I moved away for a little bit, became part of the Ring of Honor dojo system, one of the top companies in professional wrestling today. My wife and I moved down. We moved back home during the pandemic. You know, that messed things up for everybody. But back here in my home, the idea has been floated around a few times, but 247 was the first to capitalize on it. I'm very happy to be working with them. Everything seems so professional on so many different levels, and I'm very looking forward to debuting at the Medows as well. What bigger, better stage than something that's 20 minutes from where I grew up? My entire family is going to be there. I've already sold out of front row tickets twice. I had to go back and talk to the guys, get more tickets. So this is going to be an absolute spectacle.
Well, that's exactly what I'm sure they're excited to have. I'm excited to be Cateside to call the action to see what's going on. Unlike your pro wrestling, I will not be joining in on the contact or on it at all. I will just be announcing, but still very, very, very cool. For you and also your opponent, I was honored to have him on MMA Fancast as well. You guys both are multi-talented, both come from like athletic backgrounds, as well as, of course, pro wrestling. What has been the highlight or the exciting part of pro wrestling? I saw on Facebook your wife is also a pro wrestler. Is that like, talk about that dynamic as far as you guys both being in the same sport? But what has been the highlight for you pro wrestling, and how many years have you been doing it?
So I've been pro wrestling for 8 years. The highlight, which then circumvents back to the MMA world, was getting to be on Josh Barnett's Bloodsport, which is pro wrestling with no ropes in front of like a 500-600 crowd Florida audience outside. It was insane. We had John Moxley on there. We had a couple ex-UFC guys on there. So what Josh Barnett does is a little bit of the old school Kumite vibe, Jean-Claude Van Damme again, but what it was grappler versus striker. I went against a guy who's now part of the New Japan roster, Bad Dude Tito. It was a clash of styles. I caught him with my head kick. He ended up catching the heel hook. So it was more, I would liken that more towards pancration, if you remember those days.
Sure.
And that was definitely the highlight there. And then wrestling at the NWA, the National Wrestling Alliance, against Matt Cardona, who was the national world champion at the time. Actually, he was the NWA champ. He had 10 pounds of gold around his waist. Him and I had a very, very competitive match back and forth. Had his shoulders down, 1 second away from becoming a world champion in pro wrestling.
That's
Also,
another highlight, yes.
Yeah, very much so. And also to touch on the NWA, Garrison's cornerman, Blake Troop, wrestles for NWA. He's had a lot to say recently, too.
Wow. And somewhere in there, I didn't hear a shout out to your wife. Did you meet her through the wrestling world? And if so, that's your highlight of your wrestling career.
So I did not meet her. I met her before. It was like literally we started dating right before my very first match. I just finished professional wrestling training, or at least my initial training into the world before I could be allowed to compete and debut. And she went to this show and she was like, what the hell are we doing here? Because it was not all the glam and glitz that you see on TV. It was a local bingo hall. There were about 50 people there. It was a Steel City street fight is what it was. Someone went through a gigantic white cross. I came out with a snare drum, beat someone with a 5-pound or a 5-gallon water jug. It was insane. And she was like, what the hell? Why do you do this? And then some little girl came up, asked her for her autograph, and she was hooked. But now she's killing it. She's all on her own. I took her to a house show, actually. If you remember a house show, it's non-televised, but pro wrestling, WWE here in Pittsburgh. And she saw one of the greats, probably the greatest woman currently is Charlotte Flair. Okay. Watched her. She did this front handstand walkover. My wife's a former, almost Olympic level gymnast.
Okay.
And she was like, oh, I could do that. And next thing you know, we start training together. She's climbing the ranks. She killed it down in Mexico last fall, won a tournament for, I think, the bicentennial of the annual company. And now she's wrestling for AEW and Ring of Honor.
That's incredible. That's fantastic. Being a very highly skilled, talented gymnast, I'm sure would come in handy for what your wife's doing. Congratulations to both of you for what you're doing. So in this no-gi submission only, like I've always thought, like there's got to be a submission that would be your like dream submission to land. Is that something that you're comfortable sharing, or you want to keep that close to the vest? Kind of what type of show would you like to put on? I know your opponent, Garrisaon, is also looking for the finish. I think both of you guys come from not only a competitive athletic background, but also a showmanship background. And combined, you guys both know what it takes to really push your opponent, but also trying to go for a big finish. I don't think you guys are going to be super like trying to be super defensive, because sometimes in submission only jiu-jitsu, it can get kind of slow, which is understandable because people are very, very defensive. I feel like both you and your opponent are going to be pushing the pace because you want the big fancy submission. So talk about that and kind of what your experience with the jiu-jitsu side with submissions is.
So the difference between my opponent and I is I'm an elite combat specialist. Now, he has served, which I commend to the highest regards, but he's never competed on the levels that I have. He's never went up against the level of talent that I have. I've literally trained with world champions whenever I was doing mixed martial arts. Cody Garbrandt, other guys in the UFC like Kama Worthy, Adam Milstead, Mark Jericho, a whole slew of guys that literally would have my neck in a vice day in and day out. So I learned through them, just running a gauntlet and running the regional scene with those guys. Obviously, they took it a step further whenever I switched sports into pro wrestling. But you asked the question earlier, actually. You were like, was I the Savage Gentleman before? And the answer is no. I was known as in your face because I do not back down. Literally, my chest reads all fight, no flight. So it's not a gimmick. It's not anything that just said to be said. It's not a cool, catchy catchphrase. That's how I live my life. That's how I fight. That's how I am in the ring every single time I step in. So yes, I'm 100% going to be shooting for a finish. And I was actually on Busted Open Radio today. I don't know if you caught that interview, but I did let out, the one I was working on this weekend in the submission, and I have a few wins through my mixed martial arts career with an anaconda choke. I feel it's something that people just leave out there, especially guys that are overreactive. So I hope he brings that energy and I hope he comes forward. I don't want a boring match. The fans don't want a boring match. I want them out of their seats because there's no striking in this. But I still want to prove that even though we're just on the ground and we're grappling, this is going to be exciting. It's going to be fast-paced, high octane.
Sure. And we saw with Sprawl and the Burgh 1, and they brought in UFC Hall of Famer Gray Maynard, and an incredible main event. But how exciting and fast-paced really sport submission-only jiu-jitsu really can be, and how involved the fans were. That's something that Ryan Middleton, the owner of 247, has always said. It's a different type of crowd, a crowd that really expects a lot of jiu-jitsu knowledge and skill, as opposed to just, not that it doesn't take skills to throw elbows, but, they're more about jiu-jitsu. It was an incredible night, and elements in MMA on the ground that most fans wouldn't react to, the Sprawl and the Burgh crowd did react to, because they're a lot more jiu-jitsu aware. So they reacted a lot more to elements that can sometimes get missed in the MMA world. So I'm sure you and Garrisaon are going to put on an absolutely incredible show. I'm glad you're able to get out there.
A banger, as the kids say.
A banger. I'm glad you're able to get out there and hype this and really bring more awareness to it, which is exactly why you're on MMA Fancast. I really appreciate that. For all fans of Savage Gentleman, like and subscribe. I'd love to have you back on about what you're doing after this. If you continue the pro wrestling career and have a title match or bout coming up, you have to let me know. I see your titles in the background. Can you run us through? I see a Butterfinger and something else.
New York. And I have a third one. It's not visible, but that's a Wrestle Pro in New Jersey. I'm a tag team champion down there. I'm the television champion in New York. And this custom-made beauty sent by the company Butterfinger, literally handcrafted for me, engraved, Savage Gentleman, was sent to me. And
It's
it's
fantastic. The actual company made that for you. It does say on the side, no one puts a finger on my Butterfinger. It's absolutely incredible.
exactly. And that's because for my love of peanut butter, my fans in the pro wrestling world are known as the peanut butter platoon. I am bringing that entire army with me into the cage on the 20th.
Well, that's fantastic. I'm hoping along with that belt, they also sent you some Butterfingers along with the Butterfinger champion belt. That is absolutely
Absolutely.
incredible. Butter, what you call them, the peanut butter brigade.
Platoon.
Platoon. Sorry.
And
Peanut
but
butter.
you were close. Butterfinger, their army of mine is the Butterfinger Brigade. So collectively between the two of us, we have an army of peanut butter soldiers.
Yes. Well, I am looking forward to being able to throw out in commentary that the peanut butter platoon is in the house to root you on
Yes.
because of your love of Butterfingers and peanut butter in general. Absolutely incredible. You've clearly, which I think is what's so exciting about interviewing pro wrestlers who are into jiu-jitsu, or probably the most famous one to cross over, Brock Lesnar, really shows the entertainment side in a sport which is entertaining already. I think that's what made Brock Lesnar. He could do the real fighting, he could do MMA, but he also had some classic lines on the mic and other things that not every fighter is going to do. Really looking forward to this one. Sprawl in the Burgh 18. There is a pay-per-view, but it sounds like you're going to be mainly pushing people to come in person. So hopefully they can still get tickets from you to be there. Buy tickets directly from Savage Gentleman, or if you do buy it from 247fighting.com, make sure you click Savage Gentleman's name. That way he gets credit. Absolutely incredible to have you on the show and to talk to you about your upcoming October 20th, Friday night at the Holywood casinos at the Medows. Go ahead, sir.
So you mentioned this is, yes, primarily going to be people here in Pittsburgh, but in 2 weeks, I'm going to France. So not only am I going to beat some ass on October 20th, but then I'm going to celebrate the next week in Paris with my wife and go win a world title because I have an opportunity out there. So not only is this going to be local people, but this is going to be a global thing. So please push that link for the stream. I want to get everyone out there. Yes, I do have tickets available. I've been running around. I literally just got home from meeting people right before I jumped on here with you. And I'll still be running around all weekend, the next 2 weeks, linking up with people back and forth. Like I said, my front rows are all sold out. I got row 2, 3, 4, and some general admission left, but I'm definitely looking forward to filling every single seat, having him scream Savage Gentleman after I choke his body lifeless. And then, like I said, his cornerman Blake Troop was running his mouth, who's a black belt. And I give him all the respect in the world for everything that he's done. But if he wants some, he can get it too, because I guarantee this isn't going 8 minutes. I'm going out to put on a show. And like I said, I'm going to go to Paris the next week with my hot, beautiful, talented wife, and we're going to celebrate underneath the Eiffel Tower.
That is pretty incredible. Talk a little bit about that. What organization is bringing you into Paris for a title match?
That is Garrisaon, and they have already promised to give me French baguettes filled with peanut butter.
That is fantastic. Excited. So the legend of you being a peanut butter fan has traveled the globe to France, and I'm not sure. I'm gonna have to talk to a true Frenchman, but is it sort of sacrilege to fill a baguette with peanut butter? I feel like they consider baguettes perfect just the way they are, but glad they're making an exception for you.
I'm gonna find out. I'm not sure, but I know the owner of the company is also a pastry chef. So therefore, I'm sure he's concocting me something special. Yep. It's going to forever be known as the Savage Gentleman Special moving forward. But I might take him a special jar of my own peanut butter whenever I go out there.
That is incredible. Well, I mean, French pastry chefs are literally known as some of the best in the world. I've watched a lot of Gordon Ramsay and stuff, and I know how I've even watched the Great British Bake Off, which if you haven't watched it, you really need to. What's cool about the Great British Bake Off is British people are very proper. So they're very intense, but they're very like gentleman-like in talking.
I see what you did there.
Yeah, see, they're very subdued in their cake battles. It's called the Great British Bake Off, and it is a great show. But anyhow, fantastic having you on. Go ahead, give your shout outs, any sponsors, anybody you need to give credit to. I really appreciate you coming on the show.
Absolutely. If you want to find me on any social media platform, it's at Real Savage Gentleman, or Real Savage Gent, short for gentleman. And my sponsors going into this fight currently are Super Rare Fight Goods, one of the world's leading largest brands. They're going to be outfitting me for this event. I also have Gallery 412 Tattoo Studio. Longevity Life is providing my meal prep, so I make sure that my weight is on point, my nutrition, my diet, whenever I'm training, everything's on point. I got Country Farms who's sending me a ton of supplements, Black Magic, also Fuel into Protein, peanut butter, Reese Puff protein. It's to die for. It's identical to cereal milk. And I also have Fight Back. It's a CBD company because during these last couple of weeks, I've been rolling my ass off and I've been sore. And they got this magic little freeze stick. It's like BioFreeze times 10. You rub it on and immediately you get relief. So without that, and without that team that's behind me right now, there's no way I could do this. So I can't thank them enough.
Well, that's a great list of supporters and everybody behind you. I can't wait to meet you in person and see what type of show you guys put on, plus the entire card. And as a little shout out for the next day, even though you will have already entertained and your peanut butter platoon will have already gone nuts, the next night the cage stays up for amateur and pro MMA with a local legend in Ethan the Wolverine Goss. He was doing MMA back when you were doing MMA. He's been around for forever, both in amateur and now pro.
Yeah.
And he is looking to defend his 145-pound belt for the third time and make his case to go to the UFC. It's going to be an absolute main event. Incredible card. So if your fans love what they see the night before, I'm throwing it out there for them to make it a double header and come back the next day. It's going to be an absolutely incredible 2 nights.
And I will be there as well. Ryan personally invited me to come back the second night, so I will absolutely be there supporting my fellow combat athletes. And I'll definitely be rocking this shirt, the Savage Gentleman fight shirt, based off Street Fighter. You can get it at savagegentleman.bigcartel.com.
Well, I can't wait to meet you. Thanks so much for coming on. You've been listening to Luke Payson with MMA Fancast and the one, the only Savage Gentleman. Thanks so much, sir.
Good day.